Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Talk with an Angel. I am Angel McGinnis, host of the show. On today's show, we are continuing our discussion on sex trafficking with Elizabeth Echevarria from Living in Liberty. Let's give Elizabeth a hand as we welcome her to the show. Now, Elizabeth, what is trafficking and how often is someone trafficked?
Well, thank you for having me today. Trafficking is typically takes two forms, either labor trafficking or sex trafficking. And trafficking is the second largest illegal market both in the U.S. and worldwide. So it's, if you'd asked the FBI 7 or 8 years ago within the Pittsburgh area if trafficking was something that was happening, they probably would have told you no. They were only getting a few cases. Now, if you would speak to them, that you would say they're getting reported cases on a regular basis about trafficking. I don't think it's because trafficking wasn't happening here in Pittsburgh. It's because people weren't aware that it was happening.
And it wasn't being reported.
Yeah. And so now, as people are made more aware of what to look for, they're getting more and more reported cases of it, and a lot of minor cases of children being trafficked.
Now, Elizabeth, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what Living in Liberty is and why you started?
So I became passionate about trafficking about 12 years ago. I am originally from the D.C. metro area.
Okay.
And I was the women's leader in our church, and I was looking for a speaker at a retreat I was planning, and I wasn't having much success until one of the women in my church came up and said her mother was home from the mission field and she'd love to be our speaker. And she happened to be from a ministry in Calcutta, India, called Project Rescue, and they help women, well, specifically children who are born into the brothels in India. And in India, if you know, there's the caste system. And so once they're born into that particular lot in life, they don't have any hope of doing anything else. And she shared about how the children were often in the room when their mothers were working, performing services, whether it be under the bed.
That's horrible.
Or in the corner, and as I listened to this, my heart was broken. And I thought, what can I do about it? In fact, I ran home and tried to convince my husband to move to India, and he would not. So, you know, I asked God what I was to do about it, and he said to focus on here. And we were still in the D.C. metro area. So I started learning as much as I could and doing what I could, which was supporting financially the work in India. Well, then God had plans to move us to Pittsburgh. We didn't know anybody in Pittsburgh, didn't have any desire to move to Pittsburgh. In fact, we thought we were moving here for my husband, opportunity to start a business.
Oh.
To be a partner in a business. That was always his lifelong dream. But really what God's purpose was, we realized, was to start Living in Liberty. Because when I arrived here, I learned that there weren't any aftercare services for women being trafficked here. And so that was where my passion started, with the Safe Home, which launched the rest of Living in Liberty.
That is awesome. And you followed God's plan for you, so that's always the best, being obedient.
Yes.
Now, this is going to be a loaded question. How are women accepted into the Safe House? What services are offered, and how long is the average stay?
So
we'll tackle one part at a time.
So the first question was,
how are women accepted into the Safe House?
So when we have two criteria that they start by calling us,
okay.
You know, or we get referrals through other nonprofits, law enforcement. I mean, they just come all different ways depending on however they hear about us. Even through our street outreach, we connect with women that way. But so then they would initiate an interest in coming into the home. We would do what's a pretty long assessment to determine whether they're a good fit for a program. We are a faith-based program, and so that's not a good fit for
some
everybody.
People,
you know, and that it's a choice for them to come to us, and they know that, and it's a choice for them to stay with us. And we're a 12 to 18-month program, and it's pretty intensive. It's a 5-phase program that it takes them through being able to, you know, from coming in to getting their identification, getting them connected with the resources that they need initially. And when they come to us at first, we call it blackout phase, where they come and take away their phone. They can't, we go everywhere with them. So it's a pretty intense first phase. And it's often hard, but it's important to do that because you really need to break those ties and connections. You know, our phone, we get so connected to our phones.
It's a big distraction.
It is, and plus they're connected to the people in their life that are not necessarily pulling them in the right direction. And so that phase is very important, probably the hardest phase. We lose a couple in that phase. And then they go on to what's the second phase, where they start dealing with the detox, because it's not unusual for the woman to have addictions. We do that require them to be 90 days clean before they can actually come into the home. So that's one of the challenges, is getting them connected with the resources to be able to do that. And then they go on to what I like to call the dreaming phase, which is we start thinking about what they'd like to do next. You know, because how are they going to support themselves? What's life going to look like next? And so for some, it may be going to community college. For some, it may be going to beauty school. For some, one woman wanted to go to culinary school, you know, and be a caterer. So it can look different for each woman. And then in the fourth and fifth phases, we start figuring out how to walk that out and what that looks like. So.
And what services are offered? You kind of touched on a little bit of it already, but if there's any more services that are offered, if you could kind of elaborate.
So, I mean, we connect them with healthcare. Counseling is a very critical piece of this, critical part of their healing. They've gone through a lot of trauma. It's not unusual for the women to have been sexually abused as children. In fact, that's what makes them more vulnerable. You know, so having that trauma counseling is a very important part of their healing process. And in fact, it really does take longer than just the year to a year and a half that they're with us to really work through the healing. And then, of course, we just, one of the most important things is just providing a loving, nurturing environment. I mean, all these other things are important, of course, connecting them to education and legal resources, but it's really the transforming power of God that makes the difference.
Oh, yes. And so I know you kind of said, like, you kind of touched a little bit on the average stay, but can you kind of elaborate as to, like, a typical, is it normally a year, or it really kind of based on the person's, pretty much their recovery almost?
It's very hard for women to make it through the 12 months to 18 months. Coming out of a lifestyle of never knowing what's going to happen next, from one day to the next, to come into a very stable environment is almost boring for them. When you get into the routine of getting up, having breakfast, you know, doing the things that you need to get done in the day, having lunch, dinner, going to bed at a certain time, it's very hard for them to adjust to that change.
Yeah.
And so not everybody makes it through the full program. So it's, some may stay, you know, 6 months, some may stay, you know, a month, some may stay, just each one has been different.
So it always kind of depends on really the individual and how they're accepting the program. Do you have any women who come through and were not Christians and did not believe prior, and then going through the program did actually become believers?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, because they were willing to come to us. And in fact, she would say that she now, you know, it was hard for her to accept everybody's love, you know, to come into such a loving environment and then to have people love her so much that at first she kind of pushed everybody away, and then she started just receiving it.
Yeah, realizing that people do actually care for her. I mean, that's kind of hard to accept when you're not used to that.
Yes, yes. Trust is a big factor.
Oh, yes. Now, tell us about your outreach teams and drop-in centers.
So, you know, when we first opened the house, you know, how do you advertise for these women?
Yeah.
You don't just go out and put out, we have a house. So of course, you start networking and you meet with people that know who to connect you with, but we thought, well, let's go out to the streets. Now, majority of trafficking doesn't happen in the streets. Most of it happens through the internet. But there is still a proportion of women that are actually out in the streets being trafficked. And so we started down in Homewood. We've been down there for 4 years.
Okay.
We're also in McKeesport and in Northside and on Warrington Avenue.
Okay.
And in those locations, what we do is we go out 1 day a week and we connect with the women just by going out to the streets, giving out sandwiches, bottles of water, and information about a drop-in center or what's called a women's center. And in these women's centers, it invites them they operate on different days of the week depending on where they're located. They can come in and take a shower, they can do their laundry, they can get a hot meal, and they can get clothes, just talk to somebody, just to feel normal, I want to say, for a couple hours, and feel love, and to get things that they need to, personal care items as well.
Yeah.
But it helps us build that relationship with them and to start to build that trust. This past year, we're really starting to see the fruit of our work down in Homewood, and we connected 5 women with housing, not necessarily coming into the safe home, because if you remember, I said you have to be 90 days.
Yeah, you have to be 90 days clean, so.
Yeah. So they can't necessarily come into the house directly. Sometimes they have to go different paths, but getting them off the streets, we've been able to help women do that. And we hope that this year we're going to see many more women get connected off the streets.
Well, with God working through it, that'll always happen. It'll be more.
Yeah.
Can anyone come to your drop-in centers, including the perpetrators?
Well, we don't allow men in the center. We do, when we're out in the streets doing street outreach, we do give sandwiches and food to any men as well. We think it's just as important to build a relationship with them, that they need Christ just as much as the women that we're serving. And we also, if they come to the drop-in center, we'll give them a sandwich. They can't come in, we'll give them food through the door.
Oh, okay.
And they can take it with them, but they're not allowed. It's supposed to be a safe space for our women, so that they can come in and feel secure.
Which is understandable. Now, just to kind of piggyback off of that question, sometimes have you ever seen where, I know usually we see reports and it's usually men that are doing the trafficking, but has there ever been times where it's actually a woman that is doing the trafficking?
Absolutely. In fact, I was just reading online the other day about an incident, a sting that took place at Pittsburgh Mills, where there were women involved in being the madam and doing the trafficking. So it's not as common as the men, but there is a proportion of women that are responsible for being the traffickers. Yeah.
Now, how dangerous is it for you and your teams to be on the front line of the trafficking battle, and do you offer some kind of training for your volunteers?
So when we first went out in Homewood, we had a survivor that came down from Toledo. Her name was Elde Romano, and she trained us for 7 weeks about how to go out into the streets of Homewood, so that we were kept safe, and we made a decision not to go out at night. We found that it's just as fruitful to go out during the day and connect with the women. And so anybody that would like to come volunteer with us, we get them trained and make sure they know the do's and don'ts and can feel safe on the streets. We've never had a problem, and I've never felt unsafe. We just have to use wisdom.
Yeah.
Just like anywhere you go.
Well, yeah, nowadays it can happen anywhere, so it doesn't even matter. Do you carry any type of weapons, or you just kind of just...
No, I mean, by the time...
Well, yeah.
God, when I first started going down to Homewood, he gave me that song, God of Angel Armies. I don't know if you know that song, but it's about going before you, behind you and on each side of you. That's the word he gave me.
And that's all the protection you need.
Absolutely.
Now, what is repurposed?
So repurposed is a resale shop. We have 2 resale shops. One's called Repurposed, and it's on McKnight Road, and the
Okay.
other one is Repurposed for Kids, and it's
Oh.
down on East Ohio Street in the north side. And both stores have a 5-fold purpose. They first and foremost help fund the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
They also provide clothing, and in the Repurposed store in McKnight, we sell furniture and housewares. So it provides clothing and furniture and those items to the women that we serve. You know, they can come in there and shop with dignity and pick out things that are their size and style and color, as well as for furniture. We also do job training, so women that come through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, women that come through our home can potentially get job skills training in the store. And then we have a section in the store called the Soza Boutique, which we help.
Oh, that's going to be my next question. So there you go.
Which helps support other organizations around the world. So we sell items from Africa, India, China, and that are supporting women that are being trafficked or at risk of being trafficked. And then it just raises awareness. You know, as people come in and shop, they want to know, well, what are my donations going to?
Yeah.
Or what are my purchase dollars going to? And it creates great conversations around. And you can still get people that come in and, oh, really? Here in Pittsburgh? So,
Yeah. Some people are blind to that.
yes.
Now, tell us about your awareness and prevention team.
So the Awareness and Prevention Team is the team that goes out and will speak to anybody that invites us, whether it be a church, a school, a business, just a small group that wants to learn more about human trafficking. We're really trying, you know, one of the biggest ways to help prevent trafficking is this education and people learning the red flags of what to look for. You know, one of them being, the biggest one being the older boyfriend, you know. And so if we can get people educated about it, that's why I believe the FBI is seeing more and more calls, because people are able to identify the red flags. We're really trying to work on the prevention side of things this year, which means hopefully getting into schools more, because the average age of entry is, you know, 12 to 13. And so if we can speak to those young people and help educate them so that they can learn what to look out for, can have a big impact.
That's definitely very important because, I mean, 12 to 13-year-old girls, they're very vulnerable to any and susceptible to anything. So it would definitely be good if the prevention side can get a little bit raised up there with the schools, because it's definitely something that's needed.
Yeah, it's been harder to get into the schools, but we're starting to make some inroads. So that's good.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised that it'd be a little difficult, but
Yeah.
hopefully that they become aware of the fact that this is important and these kids need this education.
Yes.
Now, what are some of the team objectives?
So, I mean, for the awareness team is just to really, like I said, get out there.
Get out there.
And speak to whoever we can so that they can learn about those red flags, and so that we can get more on the prevention side of things. Because wouldn't it be nicer not to have to help people exit trafficking? We can help prevent them before they even enter.
It's always better to kind of stop it before it goes ahead and escalate to something else. But
Absolutely.
I mean, you can only educate so much if people are not trying to be willing to listen or let you guys into the schools to talk about the prevention.
Absolutely.
Now, what can the average person or church do to help?
So the average person, I mean, there's lots of ways. I mean, one of the best things to do is just learn about it, you know, and become more aware of it, so that if you were to see a circumstance that had some of the red flags, you could, call law enforcement or whoever and intervene. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing that an average person can do. But if there's, a compulsion to do more, there's different ways to, certainly with Living in Liberty, to get involved and volunteer. We are always looking for volunteers, whether it's to go into the stores and work in one of the repurposed resale shops, or to be part of the outreach team, or even to volunteer in the house. You know, we need people to do all those kinds of things. But just learning more about the issue is an easy thing that everybody can do.
Now, I noticed on your website that you have plans to open a house for youth victims of sex trafficking. Can you give us an update on that project?
So that's been a challenging project because, you know, the CYF and they're moving the way that they do things from residential treatment facilities and group homes to more of a foster care model.
Okay.
And so we're looking at what's the best way to approach this issue. It's not, I haven't given up because I really think that there's a way. I'm either looking for someone to partner with on this, either someone that has an existing group home or something along those lines, because right now the solution is a lot of the trafficking victims are ending up in Schumann still. So, and I don't think that that's the best solution for it.
Yeah, that's definitely not the best solution for trafficking. They're a victim.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
oh. Well, I hope that, you know, more come with that and that, you know, able to kind of progress so that they're not being placed into Schumann Center.
Yes.
Now, what can the public do to help make the youth home happen?
Certainly just advocacy for the fact that there needs to be something. Of course, financially supporting is always a good thing because money helps make things happen. Connections, you know, you never know who knows someone or a relationship that would help to make that happen. But advocacy is a big thing, I mean, because there needs to be a place other than Schumann for these youth to go.
Yeah. Now, what other things are you doing to decrease the youth vulnerability to trafficking?
Again, I would go back to the prevention, you know, trying to speak to as many youth as we can. Like I said, it's been harder to get in the schools. We'd really love to get more into the Pittsburgh city schools and raise some awareness there. So trying to get some more connections and inroads and figuring out how to navigate that. It hasn't been an easy path to do. But that's the biggest way that we can get, you know, and even this today, hopefully it'll reach some youth that will learn about trafficking and how to keep themselves safe.
Yeah.
You know.
So share the video, people. Now, what should victims of trafficking do if they want to get out of the life?
So there's several things that they can do. It depends on their particular circumstance. So if they're, you know, feeling unsafe and that they need to be taken out, then they probably need to get law enforcement involved. And so there's an FBI hotline that they can call. I don't know if you want me to give you the numbers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which is 800-225-5324. They certainly can reach out to LIL, or Living in Liberty, which is 412-837-9347. PAR also has a Pittsburgh Action Against Rape as another resource, and that's 800-225-5324. So all those numbers are good numbers to reach out to. But law enforcement, if you feel endangered or threatened, that's the best number.
option.
Yes, because we're not first responders.
Yeah.
We don't go and take people out of.
You're like, we don't go and take people out.
We take them after law enforcement and help get them on the new path.
Now, when we come back, we will have a special guest, Nicole Echevarria, join us. Nicole will share her experience with a potential trafficker, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Become an Angel partner today. When you partner with Angel, you are among a special group of people who stand alongside her to see more lives changed through her informative sharing. Your faithful monthly support will enable Angel to reach youth all around the world. You can become an Angel partner by making a monthly pledge of $25 or more, and you will receive our Angel Pack. That includes the backpack, mug, and t-shirt. Just go to our website and donate today. And thank you in advance for becoming an Angel partner.
How many New Year's resolutions have you made or kept? If you're 0 for 0, welcome to the club. You found that the resolution part is easy. It's the daily living out that resolution that's difficult. Join us this January at New Vision Community Church as we learn together how to make and sustain true life changes by looking at life's instructional manual, the Bible. It's not rules or resolutions, it's freedom for a new beginning. Sunday worship begins at 11 a.m. Welcome back to Talk with an Angel. I'm your host, Angel McGinnis, and our special guest is Elizabeth Echeverria from Living in Liberty. And we are joined by Elizabeth's daughter, Nicole Echeverria. Now let's give a hand for Nicole. Now, Nicole, a few months ago, you experienced an unexpected incident. Can you share your story?
Well, about a couple months ago, me and my family were going on a trip to New York, and it was probably like 1 o'clock in the morning. We were all tired. We decided to stop at a truck stop and use the bathroom before we continued our trip. Me and my mom went over to the bathrooms, and she went in, and someone kept staring at me, and I like kind of noticed it at first, and I began to stand there, and I was just like focused on using the bathroom, and he came over and started talking to me and was like, "You're gorgeous. You would be great in modeling. Like, has anyone ever talked to you about this before? Like, you have to be a model." And I was like, "Oh, like, no, I'm not." And he was like, "Okay, well, I have to run inside really quick, but when I come back out, I'd like to speak with you." And at this point, I was kind of freaked out, and I was like, "Stranger danger," and like standing there waiting for my mom. And she came out of the bathroom, and I like proceeded to go inside. I was like, "I'll hurry up and get back to the car." And so I went in, and I came back out, and I was like ready to dart to the car, make like a beeline, and he was waiting outside for me, and he was like, "I have this phone number for you, and you're gorgeous, like you have so much potential. I could see this going somewhere for you and becoming big," and proceeded to write down his phone number on a piece of paper with a random modeling agency I've never heard of before, and was like, "Give me a call like really soon, within the next hour, like just let me know if you're interested." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just walked back over to my car and got in and kind of sat there for like 10 minutes just thinking like, did this just happen? Like, should I say something? And just proceeded to sit there, and then I brought up to my mom, and I was like, "I just got handed a phone number and asked to be a model." And they started to freak out. They're like, "What do you mean? Like, you got asked, like, someone gave you a phone number?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I didn't know what to do, so I just walked back over here, and I'm going to give it to you guys. And because of what my mom said, I was like, okay, here you go.
Yeah. Now, do you think you would have responded differently if your mom was not active in helping trafficking women?
I mean, I'd like to think I wouldn't, but I have a feeling I would have, because what girl doesn't want to hear, "Oh my gosh, you're gorgeous, like, you're beautiful, you have so much potential in modeling," like, that's every girl's dream, like, who doesn't want to be a model?
Yeah.
And it was just like, I'd like to think I wouldn't, but like, I don't know, because hearing you're beautiful and all that stuff, it makes you feel so good on the inside. It's like, oh, maybe I should like give them a call and see like if it's gonna go somewhere, it's good money, like all this stuff, but like, so probably not, but like, because of what I've learned from her being my mom, I'd like to think, yeah.
Now, how aware are your friends of trafficking and how teen girls are being recruited?
At first, when she first started, I didn't really talk to them about it. I was just like, oh, my mom just like runs a nonprofit, and I wouldn't tell them what it was about. And now it's like, if any sketchy little thing happens, I like go into extreme detail with my friends, like, you do not do this. I'm like, no, like this happened. And because of the Mills bus that happened recently, like my mom was talking about, I was talking to them about it when she told me, and I was like, see guys, I was like, this is why you have to be careful, because I don't want this to end up happening to you. And they're like, we didn't realize how real this was until something was actually came out about it so close to us, because we go to that mall area all the time, and for them to be like, oh, well, there was just a bus there. I'm like, I told you, like, I'm not making this up, it's real. Like, I didn't think it was real at first. When I heard it from my mom, I was like, just stop talking my ear off about it. I was like, I don't care. And then I hear all this stuff, I'm like, wow, it's real. And now I'm like more cautious than I used to be when I was younger and naive, and now I'm aware, and I'm like, okay, like, if someone comes up and talks to me, you have to
Yeah.
distance yourself and not be as outgoing as you always are, because you never know what their intentions are.
Yeah, you never know. Now, is your daughter's story a typical way traffickers recruit?
It is a very typical way.
Mm-hmm.
They go right for that young girl's vulnerabilities,
Mhm.
you know, and they, in fact, they know how to size up a girl within a couple of minutes of talking to them and deciding whether it's something worth pursuing. And so then they will target in and using the line of a model. How, like she said, how
Mhm.
enticing is that?
Yeah, you're a
to-
young girl. You're like, oh, thank you.
Yes.
Mhm.
And imagine if that scenario was a little different. She was with 3 of her friends,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they were driving somewhere and traveling. Might they have all decided to call, you know? Or
Yeah.
one of them might have decided to call if you'd approached all of them.
And that's why awareness is very important.
Yes.
Now, Elizabeth, is there a connection between drugs and trafficking? If so, can you elaborate?
So yes, there is a very strong connection. And I mentioned a little bit before
Mm-hmm.
that one of the challenges is, especially with the women in the street, heroin tends to be the drug of choice for most of the women.
Yeah, that seems to be a drug choice for a lot of people right now.
Yes. And in fact, the opioid epidemic,
Mhm.
there's a lot of overlap with trafficking.
Mm.
But so the big challenge, of course, is not only trying to help them overcome the life, but it's this addiction, you know, and to say which one comes first, the addiction or the life, I think it's different path for each one of them.
Yeah. Now, what role does Backpage.com play in trafficking? I'm kind of familiar with this already, but
So Backpage has a pretty big role with trafficking. You know, like I said before, most of the trafficking doesn't happen out on the streets.
the internet.
Most of it happens through the internet and through a site called Backpage. Backpage is similar to Craigslist, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, it's like a Craigslist of a different type of ads.
Yes, a lot of personal ads,
Mhm.
and in fact, they make a lot of money off of posting for personal ads. And there's been a lot of controversy over Backpage. In fact, there was a Sheriff Dart who went to was trying to shut down what they were doing, and so he went to the credit card companies and was able to get them to stop receiving credit cards for personal ads from Backpage. And then there was some pushback, and finally he was able to get them to shut that part down, receiving credit cards for that. But then what it did is it just pushed it to other places, either on Backpage or within other sites.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then there's the other school of thought that thinks, well, and has aligned themselves working with Backpage. There's another sheriff that took the tack of, well, let's work with them. I mean, since this is the tool that they're using, Backpage, then let's, you know, this is a way we can get information about where
Kind of
these
like
girls.
someone partner with them almost a little bit.
Yes,
Mm.
they're able to get some information from them.
Mhm.
They've worked, I mean, they've been somewhat collaborative in the sense of providing information on some of the individuals. And at least it's a resource where you know, and Carnegie Mellon has created a tool that can then search and find numbers. And so it's helped, you know, so there's kind of two schools of thought. Shut
Yeah.
it down because this is an avenue that,
Or keep it going so that you could try to get the people.
right, but then if you don't, they're just going to go somewhere else. So,
Yeah, that's the only other thing.
yeah.
Now, I will give you some common myths about trafficking. Can you dispel them with the truth? So the first one's going to be prostitutes are products of their own bad choices.
Certainly, you know, that's a question we used to get asked all the time. And I'm probably dating myself, and some people might not be able to relate to this, but I always compare. Have you ever heard of the movie Pretty Women?
Mhm.
You know, and the media just did a good job of portraying that it was a lifestyle choice, that these women choose to do this, and that they want to do this and are choosing to do this. And so being a product of their own bad choices is not a reality. You know, I mean, it's more often of their circumstances. You know, and each one is different. So, for one, it might be, you know, they wanted to be able to feed their kids. Sometimes it's the addiction that drives them, and others truly have traffickers and pimps that are
That put them out there.
Yes, that are forcing them to do this.
Legal means alone. Can we rid our streets of the problem?
I would say no, because we need to work on the demand side of things, and until we work on the demand and stop the demand, there's always going to be a supply, because, as I mentioned, it's the second largest illegal market in the U.S. That means it makes a lot of money. It's a $32 billion industry worldwide and almost a $10 billion industry in the U.S. So as long as it's making money for people and we don't address the demand side of it, there's always
There's always going to be something.
yes, a supply.
This is only a problem in other countries, which we already know that this is not.
Yes. I mean, like I said, the FBI would have said that it wasn't happening even here in Pittsburgh. People can believe even that it's happening in, you know, like New York City or other large cities, but still have a hard time believing it's happening in their backyard.
And it is.
And it is.
Now, what final words would you like to leave us with today regarding living in liberty and trafficking?
I mean, the most important message I always like to get out there is just the awareness of the issue, that it is happening around us, that we can't stick our heads in a hole and pretend that it's not, and that the best thing that you can do is get educated about the issue, about the red flags, and you know, that little inside voice when it tells you something is not right, there probably is something not right. And so if you see a situation that, you know, if you're in a hotel and you see a woman in the elevator with an older man and something just doesn't sit right with you, I mean, call and report it. You know, that's the most effective thing that we can do. You know, Living in Liberty would always love to have people come volunteer with us. You know, we're always looking for more help. So people that want to take a step further would love to have you join us in our work and help these women transition and get out of this life.
Now let's thank Elizabeth and Nicole for carving out some time from their busy schedule to discuss this timely topic. You can check out my Facebook page for a listing of where to get help. And if you would like to be part of our live studio audience, join us next month on Saturday, February the 3rd at 11 a.m. for our live broadcast. You can always go to my church website for more information on this show or see a replay of our YouTube video or on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to like and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This has been Talk with an Angel with yours truly, Angel McGinnis, and I'll see you next time.